Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 87, Meno 74e to 75b. In the dialogue Euthyphro, Socrates had pointed out that where there is number, there is not necessarily odd or even, but where there is odd or even, there is necessarily number. In the same way, he could have said about straight and curved, where there is shape, there is not necessarily straight or curved, but where there is straight or curved, there is necessarily shape. But he didn't say that. He said that straight and curved are shapes. He evidently did this to puzzle Meno in an attempt to make Meno begin to think dialectically, because straight and curved, as Socrates portrays them, are opposites, and yet there is something which unites them, and that is shape. So what is shape? This is in order to prepare Meno for telling Socrates what virtue is. There are many virtues, but what is behind them all? What is virtue itself? Tipote un tuto hu tuto onomaestin to schema, peiro legen. What on earth then is this, whose name is this, the shape, to schema? Try to say. Socrates emphasizes in this question that schema, shape, is the name of something, and he wants to know what that thing is, not what the name is. He also wants Meno to try to tell him what that thing is, knowing full well that Meno won't be able to answer. And in fact, Meno doesn't answer, so Socrates has to carry on. E unto eroton tihutos, e perischematos, e chromatos, e pesoti al ude manthano ego gehotibule o anthrope ude oide hoti leges. So if you were to answer someone asking in this way about shape or color, if you were to answer, I don't understand what you want, O fellow, and I don't know what you're saying. Isos an ethaumese kai epen umanthanes hotizeto to epipasin tutois tauton. Perhaps he would be surprised and say, don't you understand that I'm looking for the same thing in all these things? Evidently, Meno still doesn't answer, so Socrates carries on. Eude epi tutois o menon echois anipen etisse erotoe. Would you be unable to say even about these things if someone asked you? Socrates here uses the expression Meno likes to use to be able to say epen echo. Meno would understand this to mean that Socrates is asking him whether he has a prepared answer for this, and evidently Gorgias has never given an answer like this. For one reason, to give a singular reply concerning all things is the opposite of being generous. It's not very impressive, but I don't think that's the main reason. The main reason is this is very advanced. You have to think dialectically in order to arrive at that which is common to all things of a particular kind of thing. Socrates now gives an example of the sort of question this someone would ask. Ti esti epitos strongylo kai euthe kai epitois alois hade schemata kales tauton epipasin. What is in the round and the straight, and in all the others which you call shapes, the same in all? Notice that this question entertains the possibility that there are more things than the round and the straight, but the other shapes are actually squares, triangles and spheres, that sort of thing, not the round and the straight. The question still stands. What is the common denominator to all things which you call shapes? Socrates now adds a sentence guaranteed to prevent Meno from giving an answer. Peiro e pen hinakai gene taisoi meletē prosten perites aretes apokrisin. Try to say so that this will also be an exercise for you towards the answer about virtue. If there's one thing we already know about Meno, it is that he is happy to provide an answer he has already been told. But Socrates here is suggesting that Meno has to do all the work. He has to exercise. Meletē is exercise, and this is an important keyword, you might say, for this dialogue. The whole dialogue is an exercise in dialectic thinking, and the subject of virtue may be regarded as simply the content of this particular exercise in dialectic thinking. On the other hand, dialectic thinking has a lot to do with virtue. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Here is Meno's reaction to Socrates' request. Me ala suo Socrates epe. No, Socrates, you say. It looks as though Meno doesn't want to exercise, and we might say that he is lazy, but we really shouldn't be too hasty. Meno does, after all, exercise in order to remember all the answers Gorgias gives to various questions. We have only heard 2 answers from Gorgias, but there must be more. Meno has remembered them all. We may assume this is a character in a dialogue, after all. This is not the real person. We should ask ourselves what sort of exercise Meno does in order to learn the answers of Gorgias, the sophist, and the answer is fairly simple. He just needs to remember by heart exactly what Gorgias said. Socrates, on the other hand, doesn't give Meno anything to learn by heart. He actually requires Meno to put in some effort into thinking for himself. This is something Meno has not learnt from Gorgias. Socrates doesn't give him an answer. He's actually asking Meno himself to give an answer. And Socrates has asked a question which appears to mystify Meno. He has hardly any idea how to answer such a question, even though he may understand roughly what Socrates is getting at. If there are shapes, Socrates wants to know what shape itself is. That sounds obvious, but it's very hard for Meno to give an answer. If Gorgias had given an answer about shape, surely Gorgias would have said, there's no problem giving an answer about shape. For example, if you want, I'll tell you that there are squares, or there are circles, or triangles. There's really lots and lots of different shapes, so we have no problem answering that question. It's that sort of thing that Meno would have liked to have said. And we've already seen Meno blaming Socrates, really, for not allowing him to give that sort of answer. As he said, Socrates isn't satisfied with that sort of answer. Meno, however, shouldn't be the only one here who is dissatisfied. Socrates wanted Meno to do a bit of exercise, and here is Meno refusing. He's saying, you, Socrates, you give an answer. This is exactly the sort of thing Meno would expect from a teacher. This is what Meno has expected all along from Gorgias. Gorgias gives answers. You ask him a question, he gives a very generous answer, as befits someone who knows, on the assumption that people who know give answers. Given that Socrates wants Meno to answer what is the X in all instances of X, basically, and given that Meno is incapable of doing that, we seem to be at an impasse. How can the conversation continue? Let's see what Socrates does about this. Boulesoi charisomai panuge. Do you want me to do you a favor? Absolutely. Etheleses un kai su emoi e pen perites arites, egoge, prothumete ontoinon axion gar, panumenun. Will you as well then be willing to tell me about virtue? I will. So I should be eager to do it, for it's worthwhile. In other words, it's worthwhile. Absolutely it is. So Socrates has resorted to bribery. If he does Meno a favor now by telling him about shape, then, according to this agreement, Meno will then give an answer about virtue. And Meno has no trouble agreeing with this. He says, absolutely, of course I will. We know that he won't, because he is incapable of giving an answer about the one virtue in all virtues. He doesn't have any idea how to do it. So Socrates is saying, in effect, that by showing him how to explain the one shape in all shapes, this in itself should allow Meno to say what is the one virtue in all virtues. This is nonsensical. This is not going to happen. What Meno has to exercise, we're going back to the idea of exercise, the meletē, the exercise would be to practice finding the one virtue, the one shape, the one color, whatever it is, the one X in all instances of X. And it won't be enough just to find it in one example. Just the example of shape will not be enough to teach Meno how to find the one virtue in all virtues. This sort of exercise requires repeated attempts to find the one in all instances of that one. So what is Socrates playing at?